Welcome back to the channel, folks, and to the third in our short series of three Hungarians versus Romanians. The disagreement of kings, shall we call it. We've had two games so far. The first game was a free fight mission in which the Romanians managed to just blast on through. The Hungarians had quite a thin line. They seem to be, certainly with what I've got available anyway just now, quite small forces compared to the Romanians, but Romanians won the first one. Then the second one, which was Romanians in defence. The Romanians were strong enough to hold on, but not strong enough to push the Hungarians back, so it was a draw. So the Hungarians are defending in this one. We'll see if they're strong enough to hold the ground, and if they've got enough punch to force the Romanians back so that they can meet the victory conditions from turn 6 onwards. So we got a new player today, but let's see how long his interest keeps up when he realises he ain't got no ball to chase. Oh hell! So here is the Romanian formation. As you can see, they've got Soviet tanks this time, not the Romanian Panzer IVs, just to do something a bit different from recent games. Now this is the core formation here. You have two platoons of 9, one of 7, medium mortars, obviously the company command. Each one of these has got a Faust and one has got a Shrek, and these guys are the rifle battalion. You know, they're not the motorised guys, so they're not so good, and you do get more of them as a result, and they're not terrible, though they are green. You can get a better rating if you're lucky with the peasant army roles, but probably not the best to hope too much for that. But they do have a 4+ assault, so that's not so bad. So that's the core formation. Then they have got Hero T-34 85s in support. That's 2 platoons plus the command. A cavalry platoon. Now these are good quality troops. That's how they'll be deployed when they come off the horses, if they ever do that. Normally they get shot to bits in my experience, but they've got that cavalry platoon and they've got a Faust. The 100mm artillery with an observer, and the, apologies for the unpainted state there guys, but the TACAM T60s with one of them looking suspiciously like an actual T60. But I think the Tigger is now available, so I can get the third one that I need. So there you go, folks. Quite a large, but potentially mob-like force of Romanians. Romanian cavalry are rated as careful, confident, trained. They do have a better assault rating though of 3+ for the defend the homeland rule, but a weaker last stand of 5+ because of the peasant army rule, but that could be improved to 4+ depending on what you roll at the start of the game. Now cavalry are not a very common unit. You won't see them very often on the battlefield. The advantage cavalry can have is to do with their mobility. They can, for instance, cross country dash at a speed of 20 inches. That's the same for road. They have a 2+ cross check, so they do have to make cross checks going through woods and such likes. There's a chance they might get stuck. And when it comes to tactical movement, it's really just the same as infantry. But if you want something that can move quickly, perhaps to move with dashing tank units, and the terrain is suitable, then they could be a good, useful option. And at the very least, they do look quite cool. Romanian rifle formations are not as good as the motorised formations, and you find the details on the cards. Now they're rated as aggressive, confident, green, though they do have a weaker last stand of 5+ because of the peasant army rule, but a better assault of 4+ because of defend the homeland rule. Now you can get a better last stand and a better basic skill rating if you roll successfully on the peasant army roll at the start of the game. Now these guys are rifle MG bases, so they have 2 dice stationary, 1 on the move. They can have Panzerfaust and Panzerschrecks added to them for that bit of anti-tank threat, particularly in assault. So they're not as well trained as the motorised units. They have 1 less dice as in their rate of fire, but they cost a lot less in terms of points, so you can have many more of them on the table. So here's a Hungarian force, not as big as the Romanians, but still a decent size. I've got some German figures in here because Brian wanted to use some options that I've not yet painted. I still have heavy machine guns, heavy mortars to do, as well as additional infantry. But I'm getting there, guys, and I am taking my time with them to try and get them looking as interesting as possible. But here we go, there's this here, I think the scouts, I'll double check, but I think the scouts are part of the core formation. They may be a support option, but if it's a problem, don't you worry, we'll check it out. We've got a company command and 2 platoons of 7 bases with a Shrek and a heavy machine gun, and they've also got Fausts. The scouts have also got a Faust, and then we have the Pack 40s, medium mortars, and that's the core formation. They've got an additional formation of 2 platoons or 2 batteries of 3 Zinris with the company command, and the 10.5 artillery with an observer, Toldy. Now, talking about the mortars that I've not yet painted, you could get the mediums and the heavies for the same cost as these guys. So when I'm using these in future, it may be that you don't see, even though they're quite pretty, you don't see these guys very often, because 2 batteries are very much better than 1, especially when the heavy mortars have a 3+ firepower. So there you go, guys, that's the Hungarians. The Hungarian Pack 40 is rated as careful, confident, trained. Start again. The Hungarian Pack 40 is rated as The Hungarian Pack 40 is rated at careful, confident, trained. It has lesser ratings for the assault phase because it's a gun. Now, it's got a 32-inch range, rate of fire of 2, an anti-tank of 12, and a firepower of 3. It's the go-to gun for destroying enemy medium armour. Front armour 6, front armour 7 doesn't stand much of a chance against these guys, especially if they're firing from ambush. And they can even do a bit of damage against front armour 9 if they've got a bit of luck or can get a few rounds of firing. So they come in platoons of 3, not 4. 4 would be better, but as a result, no, they cost a bit less, which means you can get more supporting units to go with them. So Pack 40, the main medium anti-tank weapon of the Hungarian forces. The Zrinyi assault gun is based on the chassis of the Turan tank. It was inspired by the Stug, which the Hungarians saw was really effective in German service. It's rated as careful, fearless veteran. So it's one of the best quality units you'll get in the Hungarian force. Its mobility is similar to other tracked vehicles, though its cross-check is a 3+. It doesn't fare so well in assault as assault guns do. You might think that's a bit strange with the name, but the assault phase and being an assault gun are not the same thing, so the ratings are not so good for that. It can be a bit tricky to use, this weapon, because it can do so much, but some things are with penalties. For instance, it can bombard with an anti-tank of 3 and a firepower of 3, which is very effective. It compares well to 10.5 centimetre artillery, for instance. It's got a 64-inch range for that. Direct fire is only 24 inches. Rate of fire 2 or 1 moving. Anti-tank 10. It's not too hard hitting, but it does have the heat rule, which means at long range it's still anti-tank 10. Now it's got the brutal rule and the slow firing rule, which means moving it and firing it is going to be quite hard to get any hits. So you have to think very carefully how you're going to use this thing, how you are going to manoeuvre it, and what weapons you're going to use. Is it going to be an artillery weapon? Is it going to be an anti-tank weapon? Or is it going to roll up to infantry and try and blast them out using the brutal rule? So a very effective weapon, but tricky to use. Bridgehead is a mission that's got challenges and opportunities for both the attacker and the defender. It's quite interesting. You can see the special rules are ambush, deep, immediate, scattered reserves and minefields. Now you can see the deployment zones. The attacker's got this sort of horseshoe shaped, really quite shallow deployment zone around their edges of their half, and the defender is squashed into the middle of their own half. So there's lots of decisions on what kind of terrain you want in your defensive area, what kind of terrain you want the attacker to be deploying in. And the attacker has then got options with spearhead moves of putting a very narrow, even more narrow channel down the flanks. So there's a lot going on there, with always the challenge of the scattered reserves and where they're going to come in, and if it's going to be the right place for the defender or for the attacker. Okay folks, we have deployed. Now this mission presented fairly similar kind of options for Brian in defence because it's a bit of a symmetrical kind of table, and he's chosen the near side here because it's flanked by 2 hills that could be useful for his reserves, like to shield them coming on, and also for concealment and potentially shooting and scooting and such likes. So this is his deployment zone. There's a few options for ambush on the flanks you can see, but not much. Like this side here is a bit restricted. This side here is a bit better. But this side here has also got a great big church for defence. So I placed the, I've not put them down markers, that is, because this is just buildings everywhere, but there's pretty much like a wee box, 8 inches in from all sides in there. So I've got one objective in there, one objective in the street. Brian has got this platoon here. Now, these guys are all in the buildings, as you see. They're not in the street, so they're not under that template. And they're spread along here. A little bit spread out, but, it's quite often happens that way when you're deployed in and around buildings. Other platoons over here, away from my ranged in marker again. Company command here. And there are some shots already, before I lift these markers, which I probably will, that can get cover and fire onto the minefields if I try to clear them. Then he's got his artillery here, the observer there, mortars here, the Zrinje company command here, second in command. Oh, it's hold on a minute, what is this now? Just double check. Yeah, that's the first in command, second in command. Then the scout platoon, 2 platoons of 3 Cinderies, or 2 batteries of 3. And then on table, in ambush, 3 Pack 40s. So it's a very compact, compressed area for my templates. My artillery templates, if I range in, can maybe cause a bit of damage, but it's also a compact area so that this side can help protect that objective and vice versa. Though there is a bit of open space in the middle, we'll see if that is actually going to be a disadvantage. It might actually just open up fields of fire and allow reserve to deploy into here. But we'll see how it goes. So on my side, I have this horseshoe shaped deployment zone. no spearhead troops in my list folk. It's not something I feel I've got to have. I tend to use my scout forces as screening forces rather than as movement buffs, so to speak. So we'll start over here. The cavalry, backed up by the attack MT6s. I forgot to roll for their skills, the peasant army rules, so I'll do that off camera. Then the artillery, 2 infantry platoons plus a company command. There's a solid wedge in the middle. And then infantry, mortars and all the tanks are ready to move up that flank with a super duper quick move. And this way I've got flank attack, central attack and flank attack. So that's the plan, folks. And see which one works, because you just can't tell. Something could get pinned down for the whole game. So keep your options open. So we are ready for the start of the game. I shall tidy up and come back for the Romanian turn 1. Let's do the peasant army rules on camera. It'll help me to remember to do it first of all. So as they are deployed, if there was anything in reserve, we'd roll for it when it comes onto the table. So you've got that element of uncertainty. So this smaller infantry platoon here is just ordinary platoon, doesn't get the benefits. The artillery is a platoon where you would want a higher skill level for sure, and I have. Now I'm using the old tokens. Oops. Just going to put one on the command base. Doesn't matter what it says on it. This is the old ones where you could have any varied outcome. But I'm just going to put a wee marker on it, just so we know if it's got a marker, it's got the higher skill and motivation. This platoon here, oops, sorry Brian, I might be in luck today, they get the better motivation. So they'll be 4 up skill check, still 4 up assault, mind you don't get an improved assault. Next platoon, they get nothing. Company command, they get the improved, excuse me whilst I scrabble for one of the counters, they get an improved rating. The artillery at the end of the table, nope. The cavalry in the far wood, no. Right, so that's not too bad there for Brian. There's only 1 platoon of infantry here and the mortars over there, and of course it doesn't apply to Soviet troops. Cooper, who's going to win? Who do you think is going to win, Cooper? What was that? I don't know if I agree, but we shall see. Romanian turn 1. So, these guys, cavalry, they moved up into the wood. We follow me, push towards the front a bit. The guys are just keeping themselves behind that wood template there in support, wary of ambushes and potentially reserves because their armour's quite weak. These guys here, some of them moved up successfully with a follow me, some of them didn't. These guys didn't. The guys did. They're not all as much in cover as I would like, but they're moving up. Company command is in here. Then these guys also tried to follow me. Didn't work, but the guys are still concealment in the wood. And then these did their crazy mad cross-country dash to get myself into a position to dominate any reserves that come on and also dominate this hill. There is a risk of ambush against the tanks through here. We'll see if Brian wants to pop his ambush. He'd have to do it here, which would be quite exposed, but we'll see. Then he's shooting. I managed to range in. These guys needed a 6 and got a 6. First dice. The only thing they got hit and failed to save though was a Shrek. Of course it was a bloody Shrek, so it's gone. And then Over here, the 100 mils managed to range in first time again on that point there to get 2 guns and some infantry. They managed to hit one of the guns and it failed its save, and firepower passed, and then all three potential infantry, but they all at least passed their save, so not so bad for them. But Brian's lost one of his big guns and a Shrek, so that's not a good start for him, but I'm happy enough with that start. So over to Brian for his turn 1, and he's rolling for reserves straight away, remember folks. Hungarian turn 1. So first of all, these guys unpinned, but the artillery didn't. These guys didn't unpin, even with assistance from the company command. Brian considered the possibility of the ambush. Here you can see through their limited number of tanks could be targeted. So he's just going to keep a hold of it, even though it's getting really hard to imagine where it can pop. And no reserves. So, as far as movement goes, these guys moved into that building. That's where they really want to be. There's still a few back here watching the flank. Company command blitzed to here, and the observer just got out of the way. He then, to support the artillery, looked to range in at the hill because he can do a bombardment, and didn't a 4. He got nothing above a 3, unfortunately. These guys here on the move took a couple of pot shots, managed to get just a couple of hits, nothing from the heavy machine gun, but 2 hits from the MGs, with him being the only guy in range, but he saved them both. The guys just stayed, got in the ground because they're all pinned. The mortars, they ranged in over here and got 3 hits out of 4, and I failed 3 saves. I rolled 3 1s, but Brian only passed 1 of his firepowers. So they're pinned and the 1 down, but they could easily be gutted, and that would have definitely been a much better result for Brian. So he'll have 2 dice for reserves next turn. If he's lucky, he'll get 2 Zindri batteries on at the same time. If he's unlucky, they'll both come on over here in amongst this lot. So let's see what happens. Romanian turn 2. So in terms of motivations, folks, it was just these guys and the unpinned. So let's start over here again. Everything's pretty much just staying put just now, waiting on to see where reserves will go. These guys are moved into the buildings. I've got them kind of leaned up against the buildings that are inside because they don't fit, guys. These are not the battlefront ones. So you've got a platoon infantry here and 1 here. You see some of them will have moved into the craters because that's very useful for bulletproof cover, folks. And the company command has moved up into this building here for motivations in the main. Then these guys have dug in. Once again, I've got a plan, and they don't need to come out of the woods yet. And then these guys have moved up in anticipation of reserves arriving, and also in a chance to get some shots themselves. So in terms of shooting, the 100 mils over on the hill only had a gun and an infantry base under the template. They hit both, but they both saved. The mortars managed quite a few hits. I got 4 hits out of 5 here this turn, but they all saved. And then in other shooting, the T-34s that crested the hill, they managed to get a hit and killed one of the mortars, so that's what I was hoping to be doing there. And then over here, the infantry moving up into these red brick houses managed to get a hit on heavy machine gun, but Brian jumped it off one of this guy. He failed his save and I got a 6. Very unusual, guys. I kill anybody with MG fire. And I think these guys over here also did some shooting against the Hungarians in front of them, but no hits. Oh no, 1 hit. 1 hit, but no fail safe. And that's about it, guys. So I am now... Oh, sorry. 1 guy's moved into a minefield. I need to do a skill check for him. I forgot to do that. always get things wrong in minefields. At least he does have bulletproof cover being inside that building for the inevitable shots coming back out of him if he passes skill check and he's still alive. So over to Brian for his turn 2, and we'll see if he can unpin his artillery and get reserves onto the table. Hungarian turn 2. So in terms of motivations, everybody apart from these guys unpinned. Now, Brian's actually got a company commander within 6 inches, so he tried a reroll and they still didn't unpin. And he decided to keep his ambush. It's not a lot of good places. It's getting even less and less, but this is no longer an option here because of them. It would have been very useful for getting these guys in the rear or the side, but so he's going to keep a hold of it because he didn't get any reserves. So he knows next turn for sure he's going to get at least a platoon of Zindries, which could go down with support from long range, probably Pack 40s. So that's his plan. So as far as shooting goes, well, his mortars have continued to fire down here, and they've got another one. So they're pinned as well. Not put a counter down, but you've got to remember they're pinned. Then the other shooting, now he got 9 hits on them, 6 hits on them. So that's coming from this platoon and this platoon. And out of those 15 hits, all I can say is thank goodness I'm in bulletproof cover. You'll notice that there are 2 casualty markers there, even though I'm in bulletproof cover getting shot at by MGs, because I failed 8 out of those 15 3-up saves. Absolute nightmare. That seems to be the way of it with my infantry saves these days. Very good reason for staying in bulletproof cover when you've got infantry guys. They can save all day long or fail the saves all day long. So, both units are pinned, but they did at least survive. And that's it really for shooting. Oh, sorry, forgot. Company command, he's still trying to do his bit. So you can see he could target those guys on the hill. And he managed to range in on the 3rd attempt. That's 6 dice it took him, needing a 4. Didn't get any hits because he's got to reroll hits, but he may start to do a bit of damage next turn if he's not got too much to worry about coming this way here. So, Brian will be getting reserves next turn. I reckon he will be popping an ambush. We'll see. But over to me for my turn 3 with lots of importing unpinning to do. Romanian turn 3. In terms of motivation, folks, the only issue with these guys should take that away really, they didn't unpin. Everything else was okay. In terms of movement, these guys here are moving up a bit closer. They've got a bit of a wall of Hungarian MG fire to deal with, but they're in bulletproof cover, so I'm okay with that. These guys just stayed put. He lifted that minefield. Over here on the flank, I'm staying put because I want to know where the reserves are coming. And then I got a bit rash. It's not like me to go in for an early assault, but the opportunity was too good. These guys all moved up, then for assaulting, then for cover and fire. And we'll come to that. So in terms of shooting, the artillery managed to get that gun. It failed its save, but I failed my firepower. So they're still hanging about, guys. And if they get unpinned, they could be dishing out some heavy retaliation. In terms of other shooting, these guys here didn't really get much hits on them at all. Over here, they were quite badly shot up by, mostly by these guys here, and they lost a base of infantry to MG fire. But they also took some hits from them, but they saved. But they were pinned. I think they were pinned at the start of the game. Start of the turn, not sure. Anyway, that meant an assault, and I went in with company command and 4 T-34s. There was a hell of a lot of misses in this assault, guys. It was pretty pathetic on both sides, but it worked out better for the Hungarians. And mortar team got killed in the initial impact. The counter fire from what was just a Faust, because the Shrek got killed, remember, missed. Then, over here, those guys, they both got bailed eventually. They bailed him, and him with the Faust eventually bailed that after several hits. And that was the company command. He kept rolling 2s to hit. The 2 tanks that was in over here kept rolling 2s to hit. Eventually got one Hungarian who came out, counter-attacked out here. But after this, he got bailed. After he got bailed, they failed the motivation and had to break off. The company command managed to make his warrior safe, but that left 2 bailed out tanks effectively, and therefore an expensive assault for the Romanians, 2 dead T-34s at a time where there's likely to be some reserves and possibly an ambush coming on to support them as well. So not too bad a turn in the end for the Hungarians, and for me, you know, sometimes I like to wait to see where the reserves are and assault later, but it was just too good an opportunity. I thought I could just whoop, but it wasn't to be, folks. Hungarian turn 3, so everything except the infantry here unpinned, even with the support of the company commander, they didn't unpin. Brian popped his ambush at long range in the open, and rolled for reserves, got 1 reserve, a platoon of Zrenyis, which he brought on here. And then in terms of shooting, these guys stayed put, stayed on the ground. These guys fired but didn't do anything. Every one of them made their save. They got pinned, but they all made their saves. So that's quite good. But the artillery is a different matter. He managed by himself to kill 1 of the guns on the hill. And with the infantry company commander ranging in for the 10.5s, he killed another gun. So the war was definitely turned for the artillery. Now the Pak 40's got 6 shots on the T-34s, 4 hits, 2 of them rolling to kill, 1 rolling to bail, and he got 3 ones. So it did absolutely nothing. Then these guys on the side, looking for 4s, because of the slow firing, managed to get 3 hits. And there was 3 fails and 3 2-up firepowers passed. And what that means, folks, is he failed his warrior save. So that means they're broke. They're gone. The Romanian tanks are out of it. So quite an important turn. Quite an unexpected turn, but there you go. I'm going to have to try and do something with my infantry now. Cavalry. The cavalry will do it, guys. Maybe not. Romanian turn 4. So in terms of motivation, these guys didn't unpin. The guns did. The mortars didn't. And then it didn't have much to do, guys. The guns kept firing here. Didn't get anything. They're on reroll hits now. These guys just stayed gone to ground. I moved more guys up here. You know, I'm in a position to contest both objectives just now. There's very little shooting as a result. These guys got 1 hit, I think, on them. Then over here, these guys tried to fire a Faust, but missed. As the Zinris went in for an assault. Just 4 teams to reduce the counter fire. They lost 1 on the way in. The Faust missed, and the other guys all missed. Oh no, one ordinary guy hit, and Brian saved. He passed the motivation and he just broke off. He does not have to stay in that fight. The guys hit on a 4+ and counter-attack on a 5+, so it's too risky, and there's nothing to be gained from putting valuable tanks in against guys with Fausts, and where if you roll a 1, you are likely to get destroyed when you break off. So he quite wisely broke off himself. Over to his turn number 4, where he's going to have 4 dice for reserves, with a scout platoon and another 3 Zinris waiting to come in. Oh dear. Brian's turn 4. Quick question though, guys. How come I always end up hiding behind the Reximone vehicles in my games? Something's obviously going wrong. The mortars failed their last stand. Everything else was okay. The last lot of reserves arrived, and they rolled this corner for his scouts and the back edge for his infantry. So he's decided to deal with this flank attack that's coming in. And he placed an infantry platoon, an infantry base in the woods there, so I can't come around this side. There's not enough space, so I can't come around this side to get shots on them, which I might have been able to do with a blitz for one or two of them. I'll have to come around this side. So he's just tied that end off a bit. The Pack 40's about faced to shoot down the road. These guys stayed put. The observers moved to there. So in terms of shooting, well, my two lonesome guns over in the far corner, he didn't hit them. So they've survived another turn. He ranged in here, only got one, but they're pinned by one base of infantry killed there. Then the Pack 40s were lucky, they managed to get, well, just two shots managed to get a base of infantry in those shell craters. These guys, I don't know how they're still alive, because they had them shooting at them with their MGs, and then them. So that was about 7, 12, about 18 dice. So they're still there, but they're very pinned. So Brian now has to get me the hell out of here. We'll see how it goes, guys. I'm not just going to sit there and claim a draw. If he can get enough assets in here to like start ranging in and start causing casualties, that would not be a just end to the game. So we'll see if I can come up with any madness, any crazy attempts just to try and win the game, instead of just sitting there to try and stop Brian winning the game. Let's see what I can do. Romanian turn 5. In terms of motivation, the cavalry didn't unpin, so they just run. These guys didn't unpin again. These guys did. The mortars stayed. And so in terms of shooting, the mortars put a smoke screen down for an assault. The two surviving 100 mils ranged in here, and these guys got quite a few hits on here, certainly enough to pin. Between them and the 100 mils, the guys, well, I think they were already pinned actually, but they were pinned. Then, forgot to say, these moved out from the wood, and they very nearly destroyed that platoon, needing 63 shots. They got 2 hits. One of them was only a potential bail, so it ended up with a kill and a bail. So I might be lucky and get rid of a platoon of Zinris, and then these guys can just destroy everything. But then again, I might have my usual luck. So I put down the smoke screen. There were a total of 6 dice of counterfire from this, 2 of these, and the heavy machine gun, and nothing else could see because of the smoke, reducing the visibility range to 6 inches. So they only got 4 hits. I put 4 guys in, and I failed 3 saves. So only one guy went in. He had a Faust, so he could have done a bit of damage, and he missed. So Brian's just broke off again, and they're hiding in the smoke going, oh well, that'll be that. So we'll keep going just now. Brian's got his turn 5 coming up. And we'll see if there are any miracles in the making, but I don't think there will. Brian's turn 5, and all motivations were fine. These guys moved up to get some machine gun shots on the surviving platoon. When I say surviving platoon, I mean 2 bases. These infantry moved up to get shots on the cavalry. Everything else pretty much stayed put. Now across the front here, with all the hard cover and such likes, and these guys here got on the ground, there was no kills. Over here, they too died. Over here, another couple of bases of cavalry got clobbered, and one of the attack T60s that looks suspiciously like a T60 got destroyed, and as they're in use, shooted and scooted back off the hill. So if they'd have stayed there, I maybe would have done another ton of shooting to try and destroy them with the TACOMs. As it is, guys, I am more than happy to say the Romanians have had their butt kicked. That little Cooper was right, but he's a wee Axis type of dog with due to his Japanese heritage. He would have always said the Hungarians. But in this game, no, he was very, very right. I'll go over to a recap after this, guys, and give you my thoughts. This is quite a quick game for us, I have to admit. It could have played on and on and on and on and on. As I said, I could just sit there. If it was a tournament game, that's what you'd want to do. Try and hold on and force your opponent to come and get you. But boy, that would be a very boring watch, folks. So we're giving this one 100% as a win for Brian and the Hungarians. And that draws the overall score for the little 3-game matchup we had, folks. But more on that in the recap. Little Cooper was right. He went for the Hungarians for the win. What are you smiling at? It was good to see they got the win because it meant that the series was drawn. 1 win each and a draw out of the 3 games. So that's not so bad. Now, it was a lot shorter than our usual games. Our games quite often go down to the wire, as you'll see. This one, though, came down to a bad decision on my part and some good reserve arrivals on Brian's part. But, you know, most importantly, the main reason why that game went badly for me is because I didn't stick to the plan. I had a plan. Sometimes you need to change the plan because you can see something happening and you've got to go for it. But in this case, I kind of got tempted in by assaulting along that back line, thinking I could maybe roll up the artillery platoons. And you know what, the best I could have hoped for was to drive off some infantry and mortars, and then they'd be left hanging, sitting out in the open. My plan was to go down that flank, press all around the other sides of the perimeter, see where the reserves were coming in, and then try and reduce the objective, the defence of the objective, from cover behind the town, forcing the Zinris to come on to my tanks with nowhere practical for the Pack 40s to ambush. But I stuck my neck out. And I don't normally do that. I don't normally assault early. I normally prepare the way first. And then Brian punished me with some dead-eye shooting. Now, as far as the Hungarians go, Brian was looking at his defence and thinking, oh my goodness, there's nothing there. I could just roll right over the top of them, but they're careful troops and they're in a good defensive position in buildings, so it's going to take a long time to break them down, you know. So it maybe wasn't as bad as it looked. But there you go, folks. That's the last of that series. We have a meet-up planned, actually, where we're hopefully going to have a good few players at the end of October, so I'll get maybe a couple of games from that upon Battle Report. And otherwise I am preparing a little bit of what I have here just now in terms of American forces for the upcoming bulge, and I'll have to get myself some new stuff too. So no doubt there'll be some painting tutorials coming along for that. And pretty much once the bulge releases are out. So there you go, folks. Thank you for watching. Thanks to all the subscribers, and if you'd like to subscribe, please do so to help us build the channel, and if you hit the bell button, I will definitely see you on the next one.